Let's go ahead and get started here. Welcome back, everyone, to Physical Education with Coach. I am your coach, Coach Cullen Carroll. And today we're going to visit the next lecture in the lecture series where we're going to be talking about fitness, health, and wellness for a life in physical education. All right, so here's our outline. We're going to talk a little bit about an intro. We'll discuss the nomenclature and the topics around health and wellness, as well as personal and community health and your responsibility there once you are educated and in the process of being an educator. Then we're going to look at physical fitness as a whole. There's a lot of buzzwords, a lot of popular words underneath that are going to be relevant. And then we'll finish off talking about some self-assessment, which is extremely important when it comes to accountability in health and fitness. So here's our goals and our outcomes for this lecture. We want to be able to define physical fitness, health, and wellness. We want to discuss how they are interrelated. We want to describe the 5 components of health and wellness, as well as the 6 parts of health-related physical fitness and the 5 parts of skill-related physical fitness. So like I said, we're going to be talking about a lot of different pieces of physical fitness, a lot of words, a lot of nomenclature, vocab's going to be popping out. So we're going to briefly visit each of those topics so you have an understanding of what we're doing here. And then we want to be able to define self-assessment and explain its importance in fitness, health, and wellness. So those are kind of our 3 overarching themes, as you can see here: fitness, health, and wellness. So if we're talking about fitness, health, and wellness, what we're thinking of is something that's going to allow us or someone else to enjoy life to the fullest, right? And one of the things we need to understand purely when it comes to health and wellness is there's a popular theme in society to try and develop drugs or food or drinks or supplements or certain factors that could replace exercise. And the reality of it is that you cannot replace exercise. They've done a couple review studies on this, looking at everybody's biological systems and what would be the healthiest versus what would be the illest phase in those biological systems, each part of a person's body. And there just have been no studies where you introduce any kind of foods or drugs that change them truly to the extent that exercise can actually change them. And that's where you get this word mimetics, and you see that sentence there are no supplements for movement. It's because there truly is something different about implementing physical activity in your daily life, and it can change a lot about your lifestyle. It can change a lot about your health and your wellness overall. In fact, when you look at some vague polls where they look at what the majority of the population agrees and disagrees with, a lot of people will say, including children, I get this, I ask my kids this every single year. So all of you students will typically give me something that is saying, we believe it makes us feel good, we believe it makes us look good, it helps us enjoy life, it gives us more energy, it allows us to do the things we love, hang out with the people that we love more frequently, in more abundance. And that's important to people. And that's why health and wellness is an important topic, especially when it comes to physical education, is because this is really where you're starting to learn about these things, especially if you don't have a foundation at home where you can learn a lot about health and wellness. When you come to school, that's what physical education is meant to do, is give you an understanding of how you can live a long, healthy life and support everybody else around you positively. So what is health? The definition of health is essentially freedom from illness and disease, which doesn't necessarily encompass what we're doing in physical education, right? We talked about this a little bit in the last lecture. We're not necessarily doctors, even though you can have a doctorate in physical education. Mostly we're here to educate individuals how to stay away from illness and disease, right? And so that was why in 1947, the World Health Organization decided that there should be more to just this topic of health, which is freedom from illness and disease. We need to add another word in there, maybe another word that seems like a buzzword because people throw it around a lot. But in our topic, in our field, it's very relevant, right? So they added in this this overarching theme, health and wellness. And wellness is defined as having good quality of life and a good sense of well-being, right? So it goes beyond just the idea of not being sick, not being ill. It's more building on top of that foundation of not being sick and ill by improving the quality of life, being able to physically achieve things that you want to achieve on a daily basis because you're healthy enough to do so. So if we look at what a perfectly health and well life would be, what somebody that is underneath this theme or this umbrella would be, it would be something like they are consistently happy, right? They are consistently informed about not only their health, but positive physical, nutritional, medical interventions that could help them stay healthy and achieve things for the rest of their life that are positive. There's somebody who's constantly involved, right? And we're not just saying in physical activity, we're saying in the community. You're with your family, you're with your friends a lot, you're helping other people understand what it means to be healthy and well. Uh, Obviously, they're fit, right? That's the main topic that we're discussing here. And physical fitness can come by a number of different factors, which we're going to discuss later on in this lecture. And most importantly, I would say they are fulfilled, right? The purpose of life is to be fulfilled. Okay, if you can't be healthy, if you can't be well, then there's going to be a lot of stress in your life, and that's going to discourage your body from reaching. It's going to discourage your body and your mind from reaching this position of having a fulfilled life. So that's one of the reasons why we want to be healthy, so we can actually achieve our goals and achieve those physical standards that we've set for ourselves to get to that position of being fulfilled in life. Okay, and with personal health, right, these two are pretty much blended together, comes the idea of community health, right? You take care of yourself initially, you learn how to move, you learn how to be healthy, you learn how to eat properly, you learn what you love, and then you have to go out, and your obligation is to have an impact in your community. It doesn't matter if your community is your household, it's your city, it's your state, or your country, your world, right? The goal is you are taking what you know about health and fitness and all the positivity that it brings your life and fulfills you, and you're going to try and impact your whole community. Okay? And we attempt to do this on a government level most of the time, but there should be a fair amount of it done in our private lifestyles as well, right? Like I said, your family, your schools, those types of things need to have larger impacts from people who are fit, from people who are fulfilled. They need to start getting out and sharing. And that's the goal of this physical education class, is not only that you educate yourself, but you get out and you start to educate others, right? So community health is taking our health and giving it to our families, giving it to our states, giving it to our countries. Specifically our community is going to be our school, right, at Banning High School. Some of the components to having a community health program that crosses over from what we're learning individually is programs like physical education, right? I'm the physical education teacher. You guys are taking the physical education class. We're attempting to build community health. Within that, we have different sections and different topics that encompass the concepts of health education, right? There are different concepts that encompass wellness programs, right? How to achieve wellness, whether that be cardiovascular routines, strength training routines, nutrition routines, heck, even swimming routines or sports and game routines, right? Um, those are all factors that fall under wellness programs. A big example of community health is, aside from the one that I just gave you with our school, is one that happens nationwide, and it's called the Healthy People Project. And now we're on the 2030 version of that project. Okay, it started a couple decades ago, and what they do is essentially every 10 years we bring all of our health experts together. This could be nutritionists, this could be strength and conditioning coaches, this could be professors within the field of exercise physiology, all the way to public health, all the way to medicine. And they just try to establish realistic goals for improving health and wellness in our country. So if we look at what's going on with youth ages, okay, and I'm talking specifically with our high school ages, what we're really concerned over the next 10 years, with is attempting to increase the amount of strength and conditioning exercises and the amount of cardiovascular exercise that's done per day in that group, right? It's upwards of about 30 minutes a day is what we're attempting to get those students to do. So this is where physical education becomes very important, because nationwide, our goal of the Healthy People Project is going to be achieved if we can start to implement these specific goals at the K through 12 public education and private education level, to help these students start making these regular practices in their lives. And then we can achieve those goals so that by the time the 2040 project comes out, we're progressing towards a more fulfilled life, right? Instead of continuously regressing, we want to continue to get better. So what is physical fitness? This is where it's going to start to get a little bit jumbled, because there are a lot of words I'm going to throw at you here. So physical fitness is your body's ability to produce efficient, systemic collaboration for healthy living and daily active performance, right? So we're talking about combining the muscles with the bones, with the heart and vessels, with the endocrine system, right? All of our hormones, with our digestive system. We're trying to put all that stuff together effectively so that we can create a healthy environment in our body. And when you think about progressing with physical fitness, the term efficiency commonly comes up, right? And efficiency is performing a task with the lowest effort possible. Now, let me walk this back a second here, because I don't mean you should give low effort in physical fitness. You should give as much max effort as you possibly can in physical fitness, so that by the time your body is adapted, you can continue to increase the stimulus. And when you come back to your daily living tasks, they get easier and easier. In other words, you become more efficient at your daily tasks because you can use low effort to commit to those tasks. So for example, somebody who you consider a fit person would be able to, and this is with your age group, manage school, right? So 5 or 6 classes a day, have a little bit of a home life, be able to perform homework when you get home, after your home tasks are done and you interacted with your family and friends. And then you could also include some physical activity in there as well. Now, that's somebody who doesn't have a physical activity class. Fortunately for you guys, you have a physical activity class built into the middle of the day, right? One of your classes is supposed to be PE. So take advantage of that situation to become an extremely fit person, or just a regular fit person if you have that advantage. The important thing about physical fitness is when we look at physically demanding jobs, okay, when we're talking about maybe just service workers, firefighters, police officers, military, medical personnel like EMT, who are in and out of vehicles, working on people all day, saving lives. Look at the fitness scores if you pull up any research study or any article that you can on the internet, and see the trend of a consistent decrease in fitness scores of the people going into these fields. This is a negative thing, right? Because a lot of what these people do is help keep our community safe and our country safe, if you're referring to military, right? But if these people cannot be fit enough to be able to make it through a small series of tests, then it might be difficult for us to ask them to put in an entire 12-hour shift or an entire 6-month tour where they're consistently being rattled, not only physically, but emotionally, psychologically, to be able to keep environments safe, depending on what they're doing, fighting fires, trying to keep citizens safe from criminals, trying to fight individuals on the front lines to protect freedoms in certain areas, whatever it may be. But there has to be a certain element of physical fitness that we're able to meet, and we can't consistently be decreasing these scores, or else these service workers are just going to consistently get unhealthy, and our environment is going to increasingly become more chaotic and less safe. So let's start to look at the parts of physical fitness. I know it's a daunting number, right? 11 total parts, but we're going to already break that down for you right now. We have 6 health-related and 5 skill-related. So what does it mean to be a health-related component of physical fitness? That means specifically when we look at the literature, it's going to reduce your risk of chronic disease, and it's going to promote good health and wellness. Let me throw out some examples there. When we're talking chronic disease, we're thinking things like cancers and heart disease. All right, those are two big ones I'll throw in there for you. So the six health related that we know if we can improve are going to reduce chronic illness risks and promote good health and wellness are going to be body composition, cardiorespiratory endurance, flexibility, muscular endurance, power, and strength. Now we also have five skill related. And something that is skill related means it's going to help with performance in sport, and it's going to help with activities that require certain motor skills, right? That's involvement of the brain with the nervous system, with the muscles pulling on the joints, on the bones to produce movements around the joints. It's very complicated. If we look at it extrapolated to that 10,000 foot picture, every piece that's involved. And that's why it is a skill related component. Maybe it doesn't necessarily improve your health, but it can improve your health. And we know for a fact that these elements are present every time somebody needs to master a skill. And if you remember physical education's main goal, it's not only to help with physical activity, but it's to help teach people the different elements of sport and games. Okay, so that's where we have the partition here beginning. If you look at the six health related, we're talking about working out. If you look at the skill related, we're talking about playing games and sports. So that's where we can make our first dissection between this 11 part this 11 part series of physical fitness. Where are we going with all these topics? So what is health related physical fitness? Again, it would be achieving all the fitness components, right? And we know that it's impossible, maybe not impossible, because that's just an opinion. It's not probable to be completely excellent in all of them. And you don't have to be excellent in every single one of them in order to be fit. Okay, that's not the point. The point is we're trying to show you the different tools that you have in order to be healthy and well. And all of those six components would prevent you from having what's called a hypokinetic condition. And this is a health problem that's caused by a lack of physical fitness, such as heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, osteoporosis, cancers, and things like high body fat in the blood and in the tissues as well. But particularly, it's always measured in the blood. So that's where people always see high body fat when they think of that. So what we're trying to say is you don't have to be a great athlete, but if you can attempt to measure and work on all six of those components, then you can prevent yourself from a lot of these chronic diseases, right? And you can make yourself a healthier person. And again, it comes back to the idea of being happy and fulfilled. If you are keeping yourself away from illness and disease, you're going to be more likely to achieve your goals and live that fulfilling, happy life. So let's briefly go through each of the health-related physical fitness skills. So you have cardiorespiratory endurance. A lot of times we see this termed as aerobic endurance. And it's because what we are doing when we're testing this specific quality or this motor ability, we're testing the body's ability to produce energy aerobically, and we're testing the maximum capacity of its ability, right? And there's a lot of other terms that go in there too. We're looking at delivery, we're looking at how much CO2 is coming out. But for you guys, we just want to really think about, we're looking at the capacity or how much stress the heart and the lungs can handle during an exercise test, right? We're seeing how long can we exercise without stopping. This requires a strong heart, it requires healthy lungs, we need to have clear blood vessels, and we need to be able to supply all the tissues in our body that are working with oxygen, particularly the muscles, right? Those are doing a lot of work. So if we're testing our aerobic abilities, which again, we talked about looking at our muscles or our body's capacity for producing energy aerobically, that means we need oxygen, right? So we're looking really at our body's ability to exercise with production of energy using oxygen. So some examples of this are going to be distance running, swimming can be mostly aerobic. There's a small anaerobic portion to it too, depending on the distance. But again, remember we're talking about a duration. So we're looking at possibly middle to long distance swimming here. Cross-country skiing, right? If we don't know what that is, imagine instead of people skiing on a downhill, it's people skiing on a nice flat surface where they're doing a lot of movement, right? Gravity is not doing the movement for them like downhill skiing, so there's a massive aerobic component to that. In fact, some of the best athletes aerobically in the world are cross-country skiers. Then we have strength, okay? And this is purely the amount of force that our muscles can produce. And a lot of times this has to happen against another force. So that's why I have that nice little picture over there to give you an example. We typically measure that by the amount of weight lifted or the amount of resistance you can overcome, right? And you have lots of different sports that like to measure this somewhat differently too, right? We have some sports that go more into the maximal strength element, which is like powerlifting. Okay, they're doing single reps, moving very slow at some of the heaviest movements you can, like squat, bench, and deadlift. You have sports that look at strength from more of a speed element, like weightlifting, where you're trying to move a bar really quickly, and movements like the snatch and the clean and jerk. And then you have other sports where maybe not necessarily the amount of strength that you have with those first two sports are important, but you want size, right? You want what's called hypertrophy or muscle growth, which also takes your body's ability to produce a lot of strength in order to grow a lot of muscle in things like bodybuilding. Then you have muscle endurance, okay? And this is going to be the ability for us to produce force for a long period of time, right? Or the ability for us to use our muscles continuously without tiring. And again, some great examples are body weight type exercises, calisthenics, right? Being able to do plenty of push-ups and curl-ups and body weight squats, or being able to do certain exercise activities like rock climbing. That takes your body to be able to produce contractions over and over again for a long period of time. So it does take a lot of muscular endurance. Then we have flexibility, and I even throw mobility in there because I like showing the difference between the two, right? So flexibility is when we're looking at the ability to use your muscles through a wide range of lengths without injury. And then mobility is more focused on a larger approach, or a more gross motor skill like movement at a joint, right? We want to be able to use our joints through a full range of motion. So once again, flexibility more pertains to the muscle, and mobility more pertains to the joint. This is typically illustrated by people that are showing adequate and efficient movements, right? So like, for example, somebody who could do a full push-up all the way to the ground without any pain or any adjustments in the movement, somebody who could do a full body weight squat with their butt going all the way down, touching their calf, and not having to compromise by bending over at the waist at all, or shifting the hips forward onto the toes. Or maybe as simple as somebody being able to bend over and touch their toes. Some examples of activities that might exhibit flexibility and mobility are things like dance and gymnastics. Then we have body composition. Body composition is referring specifically to the tissue and the different types of tissue that make up the body, like fat, like muscles, bones. You have different organ systems. And particularly in health and wellness, what we're worried mostly about are things like the muscles, the bones, and the fat when we're looking at measuring body composition, that is. So a lot of times what we take is a weight and a height to give us a very general outlook, but they have plenty of really fancy high-tech machines that can give us readings of what an individual's fat makeup in their body is, of what their bone mineral density is. They can look at the amount of lean tissue, right, muscle type tissue that you have in your body. It's very neat, all the things that we can do with body composition. And this is going to be extremely pertinent, not just to health and wellness, but it also is extremely pertinent to performances, depending on the type of tasks and the type of events that you do, the type of sports that you do. So I threw in there some stuff that you guys might know about is body composition through skin folds, through body measurements. Like I said, the very brief one that we take is the BMI. You have things like a really fancy X-ray machine called a DEXA scan. You have a funky egg-looking displacement machine called a bod pod. You have underwater displacement. There's lots of fun stuff that you can do with body composition to determine somebody's makeup. And then the last one I believe that we have in the health-related physical fitness is power. And this one was kind of recently added. It used to be under the skill-related, but then it seems to have made a shift over to health-related, I believe, because as you get older, you still have to be able to work for long periods of time, right? Which is kind of what power is related to. But you also have to still be able to move relatively quickly as an older person. So not only is it pertinent in performance, it's kind of the king variable with sports and performance at a young age, but as you get older, you still have to be able to produce movements rapidly in order to avoid situations that could be detrimental to life, like falling on the ground and breaking a bone or something like that. So power is the ability to use strength quickly, and it requires both strength, a health-related component, and speed, a skill-related component. So you can now start to see the crossover between the two sides. Okay, it's sometimes termed explosive strength in the literature. I wouldn't see you guys looking into a lot of the higher academic literature, but sometimes people will interchange the term power with explosive strength, and that's completely okay. It's kind of similar, but not really. For this level, it's okay that we share those two terms together. Some examples that you might see that we do in class, maybe a broad jump, a vertical jump. In track and field, a shot put, a discus throw, those are powerful type activities. Maybe the short sprints like a 40 that they run for the NFL Combine, or the 100 meter that they run for track, or even a short 50 to 100 meter swim can be considered a power event. And the significance, like we mentioned in the beginning, we'll just kind of wrap back around it again, is it's associated with wellness, higher qualities of life, reduced chronic illness, as well as reduced early death. And typically what we see with power studies, we do see increased bone health, which is, like I said, it becomes very important as you get older. You definitely want to keep your bones healthy. So now we want to transition from the health-related skills to the skill-related physical fitness components. And when we think about the skill-related physical fitness components, we're thinking about sports. Kind of think about, throwing a ball, kicking a ball, receiving a pass, snapping a football, right? So most sports that we know require various amounts of skills that are related to fitness, but it's going to be different from sport to sport. And the other thing we have to recognize is that good health doesn't necessarily come from being proficient at, throwing ball or kicking a ball or, jumping up to grab a rebound. There is some research that would contradict my statement there. There's a guy named Dr. Stodden out of South Carolina who's actually done a few long longitudinal studies that do show that kids that develop these skills will be fit later on in life. According to the data, it shows that they're more likely to be fit later on in life if they learn some of these basic sports skills. But I want to draw the contrast there by saying it's not necessarily these skills that are making them healthy. Okay, it's just that they understood how to move properly, they understood how to play games and sports and perform certain skills, and that made it more likely for them to have the tools to be fit in the future. Okay. Good and bad athletes can still be healthy regardless. All right, there's millions and millions of people that don't play professional sports, but they find a way to stay healthy, and that's the important consideration there, right? You don't have to look to professional athletes to see what health and wellness can be. There's plenty of average everyday people who are achieving that goal. So what do these components look like? The first one is balance. And our definition of balance would be the ability to keep the correct posture while standing still, or there's another element of balance called dynamic balance, right, or dynamic stability, and that's being able to keep balance while you're moving. And some examples of that we see in our more artistic sports, things like ice skating, and even in speed skating, the performance version. The sports performance version, I would say ice skating is more of like an artistic performance. You still have the element of balance present, right? Gymnastics, you have skateboarding, surfing, skiing. These are all sports that have to be able to have a high level of balance to perform them, especially at the highest levels. We have coordination, which is the ability to to use your multiple senses together with your body parts, or to be able to use multiple body parts together, right? I mentioned this earlier, but just being able to send the signal from your brain down through your spine, through your nerves, into your muscles, to tell which muscles to move at the right exact time. That's an element of coordination. That's an element of fundamental movement that not a lot of us really think about. And it's because it was something that we didn't really think about, but we acted out in trial and error as a child, right? We learned how to sit up straight. Then we learned how to stand up. Then we learned how to walk, alternating our arm and leg movements, right? We learned how to shuffle around a table. Okay, these are all elements of coordination, all fundamental patterns of coordination that we learned throughout life. And then some of the higher levels of coordination that you'll see are in games like juggling, anything. Try to pick up 2 or 3 tennis balls and try to juggle them. Try to juggle 1 tennis ball. There's some difficulty with that. Try to play soccer, right? Try to run and kick a ball or pass a ball at the same time. Baseball. Try to take a tiny little bat and hit a tiny little ball that's flying 90 miles an hour. That's one of the most athletic activities out there. Volleyball, again, try to move around a court and know your body awareness, your spatial awareness, while you're also trying to locate objects and have object awareness. Same thing with tennis. Tennis is extremely coordinated. Again, body awareness, object awareness. Now you're talking about introducing what they call a wand into the scenario, a racket, right? There's 3 different types of elements that you have to be aware of in that scenario. It's very difficult if you break these things down to how much cognitive functioning has to be occurring while you're playing these games. And then golf, again, another situation where you're talking about hitting this tiny little ball with a tiny little club. But it's not just that. You have to hit it straight, right? Or you have to be able to put it in certain places on the course so that your next shot is going to benefit from that, right? There's an element of foresight that goes into that coordinating aspect. Then there's speed, which is the ability to perform movements or cover a distance in a short period of time. I think a lot of us are aware of speed, right? Most of us have performed some type of sprinting drill or sprinting test where we're trying to cover the space between 2 cones as fast as we possibly can, right? And we use a stopwatch or something like that, a watch on the wrist to determine that. So things like sprinting, pitching a ball, baseball, softball, hitting a baseball or softball, right? Those are elements that have to have a lot of speed to them, right? If you want to throw a ball quickly, you have to be able to move your arm quickly. If you want to hit a ball, you have to be able to move your wand or your bat, your implement quickly. Same with tennis. If you want to be able to return a ball or serve a ball at a high speed, you have to be able to move the wand quickly. If you want to be able to sprint in the shortest period of time, you have to be able to move your body across a distance as fast as it possibly can. Then we have reaction time. And reaction time is going to be the amount of time that it takes you to react to whatever the stimulus may be, right? Let's use something basic. Let's say somebody throws a ball to you and it hits you in the face. Well, you might not have a little bit of coordination, but you might also be lacking a little bit of reaction time, right? You want to be able to gauge, again, that object awareness, see when it's traveling towards you, and you want to know when it's going to come into your space so you know the right time to react to that stimulus. Okay, some other examples are starting blocks in track and swimming, right? You're waiting for the gun to go off, or you're waiting for the beep to be able to jump into the pool or jump out of your blocks and start sprinting. You have things like dodging attacks. This just came to mind, but dodgeball specifically, we do like to play dodgeball. So think about dodging the ball. You have to react again to when that stimulus is coming close into your space. You have to recognize where that object is, and you have to be able to move or maneuver around it. But the same goes for combat sports, right? Being able to dodge, being able to counter at the right time. We see this in MMA, we see this in boxing, we see this in karate, judo, jiu-jitsu. All of this is relevant to reaction time. Then we have agility. Agility is going to be the ability to change position of your body quickly, but not only do it quickly maintaining control. Okay, we see this in wrestling, we see this in diving, soccer, football, basketball, hockey. Well, where we see this most is in our agility drills, right? And when I say agility drills, that probably doesn't click the button for you guys, but think about setting out a series of cones in a box or a straight line or 3 cones lined up and trying to run back and forth between those cones, changing direction, moving as quickly as possible, keeping your body up on your feet, not falling off balance, being coordinated enough to move multiple limbs in sync with each other, right? So when you start thinking about agility, you're actually starting to intertwine a lot of the other abilities with it. So now that we've covered the 11, concepts, fitness concepts that we think are important in physical education, we want to cover the topic of functional fitness, okay? And this is a massive buzzword that I might throw a little bit of opinion in here and say I don't like the way that it's overused. And because when I think of functional fitness, the reason why I like to use it, or the way that I like to use it, is referring to what your normal daily tasks are. Okay, functional fitness has become intertwined with, doing a lot of single leg and single arm movements, and throwing in full squats and your typical barbell and dumbbell movements, and using medicine balls and using plyos. Well, in my mind, that's just training. Right? When I think of functional fitness, like I mentioned, I think, how can I convert my gains in the weight room or on the field to what I'm doing on a daily basis, right? And so for us, we're teachers, we're students, we're educators, we're in the field of education. We're thinking, how can we become more productive students with exercise, right? So our functional tasks are things like completing schoolwork, getting to and from school. Some of us don't have the ability to jump in a car and drive. Some of us need to ride bikes, skateboards, walk, which we've already talked about. Those meet not only health-related but skill-related components. Participating in leisure activities without fatigue, right? We want to be able to do things without being tired all the time. Responding to emergencies if we have a friend or a family member that needs help, again, without becoming too tired or gaining any fatigue from it. Driving a car, believe it or not, takes a fair amount of postural stability, balance, things like that. Housework, yard work, you name it. The stuff that you do on a daily basis, that's what we're trying to improve. And that's what we mean about functional fitness, is what are we doing to improve our tasks outside of training? Now, the important part about learning the physical fitness components, like I mentioned, is not only figuring out your task and how you can take it and transfer it to your functional tasks, but in order to do that, you need to learn how to self-assess yourself. And self-assessing is essentially learning where you need to improve, making a plan, developing things like tactics, strategies, motivations, things that are going to help you commit to that plan. And you can only determine what your plan should be if you know where you need to go, right? There's a famous saying, I believe it's by John Wooden, that failure to plan is planning to fail, right? And so by learning to self-assess, what you're doing is you are planning for what your goals are going to be in the future. Now, I'm going to build upon that quote, that foundational philosophical quote, by saying you have to take assessments and you have to learn how to assess yourself properly in order to know what your goals should be, right? It's very difficult to set goals if you don't know where your starting point is, okay? So here are some guidelines that we can walk through to learn how to self-assess ourselves. The first thing is to try a variety of tests, right? You want to get a total picture of your fitness levels compared to those physical fitness components that we just covered, right? And you should be doing health and skill-related tests. You want to choose the best assessments for you. Now that piggybacks off the first guideline, right? If you do a lot of assessments in your very first test battery, you're going to learn what you like and what you don't like. And that's what's truly important here, is learning to enjoy, the pain and uncomfortability that comes with fitness. It can be okay as long as you're not causing any chronic ailments, you're not injuring yourself. It should be uncomfortable, but that definitely does not mean that you shouldn't enjoy it, right? You should be able to choose the assessments that you enjoy. Then practice is extremely important. Just like you practice learning how to throw a ball and kicking a ball, you have to practice taking your tests correctly, right? Because you want to be able to do them without error. If we can do them without error, then we can get a proper assessment on ourselves. Again, we can establish a goal and we can improve upon those goals. You want to use self-assessments for personal improvement, okay? When I say that, I mean self-assessments are not supposed to be done every single day. We want to check our progress I would recommend 4 to 6 weeks is the average amount of training time that people usually go through before they check themselves. If you check too soon or you wait too long to check, you might not realize the progress you had, and you might not be able to make the adjustments that you need in order to keep progressing. The next one is to use health standards instead of comparing yourself with others, right? Being that we live in the age of social media, one thing that it is not healthy to do is look on Facebook, look on Pinterest, look on YouTube and see what's this person doing, and then automatically move to the I need to do what they're doing because I want to look like them. Well, guess what? Those videos are not national health standards. There's plenty of literature and plenty of information by way of books and websites and your physical education teacher to be able to get the information for what you should be comparing yourself to. Go out and find that information and save yourself the heartache, save yourself the psychological pain of comparison. Because another great quote that I heard actually when I was a teacher at a different school, one of my students brought this up to me, and to this date it's one of the best ones I've ever heard. It is, comparison is the thief of joy. And if you want to wrap this back all the way to the beginning of what we talked about, our goal here is happiness and fulfillment in our health and wellness. Next guideline is that self-assessment information is meant to be personal. And why I say that is because I've made this aware to you guys as well. Your information is your information. If you don't want to share it, it should be de-identified and it should be shared without people being able to tie that information to you. And in that same breath, if you're taking your own tests and you're doing your own self-assessments properly and you do not want to share them, you do not have to share them. Okay? It is personal information and it's meant for your eyes only. Your progress is meant for you to see. In the future, if you want to share that stuff, you want to share it on social media because you're proud of it, I'm not saying you can't do that. That's a great idea. But don't feel obligated to share your information with people. Your health information is your health information. It's protected by law. The last thing I want to do, as always, is I want to throw my references in here. I did a fair amount of research on the Healthy People Project for this specific lecture. The other thing I looked at was the Fitness for Life textbook, which I didn't reference here, but I referenced in the first lecture. I'm going to have to go ahead and add that in here because I want to give this guy some credit for his work. I do enjoy his book and I enjoy reading everything about it as well as using it for the foundation for most of my lectures. So I hope you guys enjoyed. This is another lecture in the lecture series for the Physical Education with Coach channel, and I am Coach Cullen Carroll. Have yourself a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.